We are living at the dawn of a new paradigm, a whole new way of thinking and seeing and acting in this world. The name of that paradigm is the Anthropocene. I'm going to use this image to help explain a paradigm. It's a difficult concept to get our heads around. If you look, as we have for the last minute, most of us are focusing on the image. We see the vase. But if I use a different paradigm, if I ask you instead to look at the space, you see faces. So the power of a paradigm is it reveals information that you maybe didn't see before. If you're ignorant of that information, you might be in danger, or you certainly won't be as influential. The Anthropocene is emerging out of the current paradigm, and it's really hard to see the current paradigm, so I'm going to use some classic questions to help us understand where we are in the worldview we use today. These are questions we've asked for generations. What does it mean to be human? Who am I? Why am I here? What is nature? What is other than me? What is the earth? What is the environment? And how should those two things relate to one another? Should we protect it? Should we develop it? What should we do? So in this simple table, which I'm going to fill in over the next few minutes, it will help us see the current paradigm. Then I'll use that to contrast to the emerging paradigm of the Anthropocene. So if we look through the development lens at nature, we see something to mine, to harvest, to farm. It's a natural capital that we want to extract and invest in our economy and our democracy. It's something that might be inefficient, so we need to improve it, maybe fertilize it, irrigate it, maybe genetically engineer it. People are the developers, they're the problem solvers, they're the engineers and managers. They're the ultimate resource, and with enough time and attention, they can solve just about any problem. Through the protectionist frame, nature is something that needs to be left alone. It needs to be preserved. It needs to be put in a park or a wilderness area. People may visit it, but they should leave only footprints. It's something that needs to be authentic, original, pristine, primitive, old growth. People, when they go there, are the problem. Right? They disrupt nature's balance. They have large ecological footprints. They destroy environmental quality. There are too many of us. We need to be fewer in number, and those that remain need to live on small farms and grow organic vegetables and perhaps sell them at local markets. So the Anthropocene is something quite a few people have tried to figure out. It's a hot topic, and scientists and observers of social trends have been struggling with it for the last 10 or 15 years. Global Change is a scientific journal where scientists have been trying to say, what does this mean for science? The Economist is an observer of social and economic trends, and they've been trying to figure out, what does this mean for the economy? There's wide agreement that what it means, at least, is what it means is there's a lot of change going on. We live in the era of the great acceleration. Steffens and others have done a project where they've sort of cobbled together all of these indicators of the human condition. And you can go search on the internet and find the exact figures and trends, but basically you'll see from this image that the trends are kind of going along, slowly increasing, and then somewhere around 1950, they start going up, up, up. There's an inflection point, and all those trends are going through the roof, whether it's our numbers in terms of population, our wealth, whether it's climate change, ocean acidification, our energy use, biodiversity loss, deforestation. They're all going up, up, up. So what we know is that things are changing. They're changing rapidly. We are creating a new world. What we don't know is the world we're creating. We don't know what we're creating. So if we look through the lens of the Anthropocene, of this new paradigm that we need to use to understand our place in the world, at these concepts we've used in the past, we see they're all very problematic. The relationship between humans and nature just doesn't work anymore. Humans and nature, they're tightly coupled. Things we do with our policy and our laws, about climate, for example, filter down and they'll impact the climate. The climate will ripple back up and impact us. Our taste in food, eating beef, for example, the long supply chains will reach down into Brazil and influence deforestation, and the environmental impacts will come back and ripple up and influence us. It's a very tightly coupled system. It's really hard to discern cause and effect anymore. The development paradigm, the development view is even more problematic. It's easy for me to sound like an environmental alarmist when I start talking about climate change and aquifer depletion and resource scarcity and ocean acidification. We've all heard these cries for the last couple decades. And the boy has cried wolf numerous times, and most of us tune it out. But what I'm here to say is that the wolf is here. It's at the door. And I'm not going to try to convince you with facts and figures and science, but what I encourage you to do, if you are a denier or a doubter, is to look at some of the ways that organizations that you trust, multinational corporations, banks, finance institutions, departments of defense, city governors, what are those organizations which have lots of resources and can use those resources to buy the very best science? What are they doing with that information about climate change and water scarcity? You will see that they are walking the talk. They are actually responding in very definitive ways. These are not think tanks. These are organizations that are putting boots on ground, investing in the future, employers, employment, infrastructure, and the works. They are responding in a way that suggests business as usual. The development paradigm is not going to work anymore. Likewise, the protectionist paradigm is in doubt. In the Anthropocene, we live in a world where there are 1 billion people who live in energy poverty. They don't have light bulbs and flush toilets. There's 1 billion people who live in water poverty. They don't have access to clean drinking water. Even more significantly, there are a couple billion, maybe 2 or 3, 4 billion people who will be joining us in the global middle class over the next 2 or 3 decades. That's a whole new set of global consumers, global citizens, global colleagues. That's a good thing. But they're going to want and deserve things we have: transportation, washing machines, roofs. And as a result of that, we are going to double the amount of energy that's consumed. We're going to double the amount of food that's consumed. We're going to double the amount of water that's used. We're going to double the urban infrastructure over the next 2 or 3 or 4 decades. That's an enormous challenge. The protectionist frame of saying, stop, people are bad, is problematic in that new way of understanding. So what do we take home from the Anthropocene? How can you be empowered in your careers, in your community, to have influence as you start to see these new trends? I suggest there are 2 things. One is to think from a systems perspective, and the other is to act from a leadership perspective. From a systems perspective, it should be pretty obvious that humans and nature are not distinct entities, that they're coupled tightly. What's less obvious is that the new system we're creating is increasingly unpredictable, uncontrollable, uncertain. Our taste, our technology, our laws are rippling through and creating changes that we really can't anticipate. And the Earth system itself has been damaged. It's changing in ways in which we also can't anticipate. So it's a very uncertain time. Likewise, from a leadership perspective, if we think differently, we can have influence. And I'm going to suggest 3 different types of leadership. Okay. Leadership that is distributive, adaptive, and collaborative. Now, the distributive leadership is not the hero that's out in front, the person with the corner office, the person with the power and influence to tell everybody where to go. Right? But rather, it's all of us. We all have to lead from where we are. We all have to have some capacity to have influence over others that we don't directly control. We also need to be adaptive. Things are changing so quickly that the tools and strategies that we've used in the past just won't work, or at least they won't work all the time in the future. Some of the things we're going to be doing will fail. Sometimes they'll work, sometimes they won't. We need to learn by doing, which means we will fail, And we live in a culture that doesn't tolerate a lot of failure, and professions that shun failure and are risk averse. So we need to have some capacity to have courage and tolerate failure. We also need the capacity to learn from those failures, learn those lessons, and to share those lessons with others through communities of practice or learning networks or other strategies. And finally, but certainly not least, is that leadership needs to be collaborative. It's clear that no single expert, no profession, no discipline has all the answers. We need to find some ways to collaborate across those differences. Likewise, it's clear that no organization, no business or no city, no government agency has the resources to solve all these problems. So we have to collaborate across organizations. It's even likely that we're going to have to collaborate across market sector, government sector, and civil society. Cross-sector collaboration, which is the most difficult. We'll be creating new institutions in the Anthropocene to solve these challenges. And it's on this topic of leadership where I am most excited, and where I think we can have the most impact, and it's where I've spent the last 10 years trying to figure out how to build the capacity in the professionals, in the decision makers, in the people who will make a difference and have influence in the Anthropocene. So when I began this talk, some of you didn't know that you were living in the Anthropocene, so I'm here to welcome you to it. Welcome to the Anthropocene. I look forward to your leadership. Thank you.